Steve said, we're going to talk about media in the Halat hisar live role-playing, live-action role-playing game. So, just to get a quick feel of the audience, how many of you have ever participated in a LARP? Few. Don't worry if you don't know what LARPing means. I'm going to try and explain it, but very briefly. So if you stay confused about what LARP is, you can ask during, after, or the presentation about LARP and how this all works out. But I hope it will be more clear. Okay, just to get a quick idea of who we are.
Yes, hello everyone, my name is Sonja Pöllönen, and this is my first conference and first presentation ever, so I'm a bit nervous. And I'm a project researcher in a ERC-funded project called Sensatra at the University of Eastern Finland, and I live in Joensuu. And also I'm a second year student in, a PhD candidate in cultural studies at the same university.
And I'm Jonna Arjoranha. I'm a postdoctoral researcher from the University of Jyväskylä. I just moved from the research project studying media controversies into studying crises in general. This is, I guess, I'm not sure which this is. You can tell me after the presentation. But first, about the LARP. So Halat hisar is a participatory art project and a LARP about giving Finnish participants, LARP participants, the experience of living in Palestinian political context. It's been run 2 times. There's the first iteration in 2013 that was funded by the Finnish Cultural Foundation and the Arts Promotion Center, and the second one 2016 that was in Ottawa, Finland, and funded by the Kone Foundation. So this pretty prestigious kind of cultural foundation are funding this type of activity. These two were mostly similar, but we'll focus on the latter one, mostly because both of us researchers participated in the second one, so we have a clearer idea of what happened. So Halat hisar had 35 Finnish-speaking and 10 non-Finnish speaking participants, and there were some additional players that took on some additional kind of support type of roles, like playing the soldiers pictured here. So now for the LARP part. So in addition to being an art project, Halat hisar was LARP. So LARP in general is a kind of this activity, form of role play where players physically enact their characters' actions. There's different ways of doing this, but this kind of tradition we're talking about here is mostly people dress up as their characters and be their characters for a certain limited amount of time within a certain framework or rules that are agreed upon before this happens. Fantasy is the best known genre of LARP. That's probably because it's the most popular one, but all genres of fiction are represented in LARP. And this happens to be about contemporary political fiction, or reality in this case. In addition to this, Halat hisar is a particular type of LARP. So it belongs to this tradition of Nordic LARP that is typical, but not exclusive to Nordic countries, even though the name kind of suggests that. But it's more of a style of LARPing than a geographical marker. And there are some kind of typical elements that are typical for Nordic LARPs. I'm not going to go deeply into that, but often these types of LARPs have artistic or political ambitions. And Halat hisar is pretty much right on cue on that. So if you want to understand what this is more about, you can look at Stenruus and Montola's excellent book, Nordic LARP, that kind of goes through this tradition. But unless you have some pressing questions on how this works, we'll move on and discuss how Halat hisar worked. So there was pre-game workshops. We spent one day of just workshopping and trying to figure out what we were going to do. And we got to know each other, and we created more details for the characters that we were going to play, and we practiced things that would happen during the game, things that would be maybe difficult to do if we didn't know how to do them, and that were definitely going to be useful during the game. Like, for example, we practiced a demonstration. Like, there was going to be a demonstration during the game. Everyone knew that. It was agreed upon beforehand. And most players really didn't have experience of how to face armed people during a demonstration and what to do and what not to do. So mostly the Palestinian players taught Finnish players on how to act in these kind of situations. Simple things like don't be too aggressive, or don't make the soldiers afraid because they do have guns. That kind of stuff. That might not be kind of it might be kind of easily understandable, but not come out natural for people who haven't done stuff like that. Then we played for one day and one night. In the fiction, soldiers declared a curfew in the play area, so everybody had to stay within that area. Then we did kind of all kind of stuff that would happen in the area, like it was supposed to be a Helsinki University campus, so there were lectures and faculty meetings and student elections, all kinds of that stuff like that, but also soldiers. They would grab people, and most people feared for their lives for most of the game. Most players were, most characters, I mean, were students. There were some faculty, some reporters, some human rights workers, and other people who just happened to be there when the curfew happened. And then there were soldiers and other support stuff that kind of enabled us to play. Then after the game we had more workshops, because LARPers are really strict about professional and psychological safety. So after the game we kind of used a bunch of time to kind of deconstruct the experience and get to know what we were doing and kind of figure out what happened and how it made us feel. That was kind of what we did. And this is how the organizers described what we were supposed to do. So Halat hisar is a game about life under occupation. You're not a citizen of any recognized country. Your daily life features crossing checkpoints, and encountering occupation soldiers and violent fanatic settlers. The purpose of the game is to mirror the current situation of Palestine in Finland and give players a picture of everyday life under occupation. So that was what we were supposed to do and what we did during the game. Okay, now about what we researched or what we would try to make sense of this game.
Okay, so why a game like this? Well, there are many reasons. For example, for a player to participate in a game like this. And there are many reasons also for the organizers to plan a game like this, but mostly it was to raise awareness and to communicate these political struggles to people, and also feel how it like physically feels to live this kind of occupational life under occupation. It's important to say that it's not the same in Palestine and as a player in Finland playing this game, but still it kind of gives you, like, it communicates these struggles. And the standpoint or perspective we take when we look into our data from the game derives mostly from affect theory. More specifically, it comes from the anti-humanism or non-anthropocentric models of thinking that we adopt from Deleuze or feminists like Rosi Braidotti and also Anna Gibbs. And they help us overcome the binary oppositions of thought, for example, in the game, male, female characters, they were ungendered characters. Then that we have like powerful and powerless binaries. They were all kind of like mixed up. And also one curious detail in the game settings was that Arabic countries were like Europe and Arabic countries. They were kind of like opposite than in a real life. Yes. Okay. Yeah. We also seek to find different relations and interconnectedness with many other things that this game had, but mostly we want to focus on the material side of the LARP. So in this presentation we are focusing on the media side of the LARP. So what do we mean by a material side? We study different material components or elements from the game, and we want to know how they affected the game experience that the player had. And in here we're going to show what was Halat's relation to media. And media here is understood as technical gadgets, phones, newspaper media, and social media applications in the game. Can you read these? Oh, okay. So, yeah. We have three parts. Media as part of everyday life and as a form of activism during the game. Then we have reporters inside the game, and media as game mechanics. Alright. So, how did the phones affect the game experience? So this is the media as a part of everyday life and as a form of activism during the game. Here's a character making an in-game phone call. So phones were used to call the game masters, and the game masters would then play different roles depending on what the issue was. And phones were also used to film and take photos of different situations that required media or social media attention during the game. Mostly people were filming videos and taking photos from the moments, like she for example, from the moments that were somehow violent. Phones augmented the game reality, and they also gave the experience of normality. Since we all use phones in different situations in our normal lives, via this normality the game might have felt more real to some extent. It was risky also to take photos or shoot a video during the game, because these soldiers might take you to and interrogate you somewhere. Why? No. Okay. Social media usage in real life Palestine and Israel conflict is very common. I cite Ziad Khalid Abu Zayed, for example. Social media should be protected as a platform for freedom of expression and not be used as a pretext to hunt down Palestinian activists. End of quotation. Then WhatsApp was also used during the game. Mostly we communicated in-game stuff and had in-game conversations. WhatsApp, like in a normal life also. One of the professors was taken by the soldiers, for example, and we received this information through WhatsApp.
Then there were reporters inside the game. There were both local and international reporters played by different people. International reporters were portrayed by the non-Finnish players, so it kind of flipped the power relations. Local reporters were usually handled very badly by the soldiers. The news were also visible during the game on a news wall that we're going to show you in a minute. The reporters acted as these kind of intermediaries between the students trapped by the curfew and then the soldiers. and also the outside world. They decided what was important for outsiders, how it was portrayed, and to whom. So that they kind of framed whatever was happening to the outside world. Because Halat hisar was a high-profile art project, one journalist from outside also participated in the game. She was participating as a journalist, so she was treated like one. The headline says, "Hidden recorder and the fear of being assaulted, a journalist participated in a Palestinian-Finnish political LARP." So she had a very similar role than the in-game journalist within the game. So she acted as a mediator between the game area and what game reality we had and the public at large.
Okay, so the next part is media as game mechanics. So this is a media wall inside the game. So you can see tweets like in Twitter, and photos also posted to the media wall. As a game mechanics, it augmented the game space, and it wasn't visible outside. It only affected the player experience. And this was the Twitter wall. So one could write down a tweet and then post it to the Twitter wall. It was physically different, but the content was the same as in real life. And you cannot really write a LARP about conflict or political conflict in today's world without the usage of social media or Twitter or Facebook or any other. And this was another photo of the newspaper media wall. So you saw the reporters earlier in the photographs. They used A4 blank paper and wrote the news there. And we also had some video news during the game.
So in conclusion, Halat hisar kind of shows you that you can't have a LARP about contemporary world without thinking about the media and how it affects things. This is kind of very central to conflict in this world. And we explored this one example. We could try or somebody else could try and compare it to other LARPs and how this works in other LARPs that portray contemporary world, or we could try and compare it to how people in Palestine use media and how real life examples differ from this and how it is portrayed in this game. And now if you have any questions or comments, we'd be very happy to hear. Very quickly. Do you want to do this or?
Let's just